Welcome to this Library and Learning Resources Bitesize Induction session on introducing referencing for university work. This video is a very short and basic introduction giving you the skills you need to get started in your first few weeks at university. The Information Skills Librarian team will provide lots more teaching across your degree program, but we will also signpost lots of extra resources at the end of this presentation if you would like to learn a bit more now. The key learning points for this session are understanding what we mean when we talk about the terms referencing and plagiarism, reviewing some examples of plagiarism in an academic context, learning which referencing style you will likely be using, and starting to identify the components of a complete academic reference, the in-text citation and the bibliographic reference at the end of your essay or assignment. So let's start by defining the terms referencing and plagiarism. When you write an essay or assignment at university, you will use research or literature created by others to answer a question or form an argument. Every time you include information or knowledge that you have learnt from a piece of research in your own essay, you must give credit or reference the original researcher. If you fail to give credit, you will be plagiarizing. Effectively, you'll be passing off someone else's work as your own. This doesn't go down well at university and will result in you getting negative feedback, so you will want to avoid plagiarism at all costs. Referencing is what we do to protect ourselves from plagiarism. Every time you draw on an information source, you must reference it. It is as simple as that, and I'll be showing you how to do this in the next couple of slides. Here are some examples of what we mean by plagiarism in the context of an academic essay. As you will see, plagiarism can take several different forms and you need to avoid them all. First up, this is the one most students are familiar with. You must not cut and paste or use another researcher's words without including quote marks, a citation, and a reference. In the example, you can see that I have used a direct quote from an information source, but I haven't told the reader what source it is from and who wrote it. This is plagiarism. Second up, you must not paraphrase another researcher's words without including a citation or a reference. Paraphrasing is when you don't use a direct quote but rewrite something in your own words instead. In my essay example, I have paraphrased the work of some researchers, but I haven't said who those researchers are and where the paraphrase has come from. This is also plagiarism. Last but by no means least, you must not summarize another researcher's ideas without citing them. The key point here is that you need to cite and reference ideas or concepts and not just words. In my example, I have referred to a scientist's idea that COVID-19 is an airborne infection, but I have not given credit to that researcher or the study they wrote. This is plagiarism. The good news is it's really easy to avoid plagiarizing once you know which referencing style to use. Different disciplines use different styles, but the concept of referencing remains the same throughout all of them. Give credit when you use someone else's work. Most courses at LSBU use a style or system called Harvard referencing, but some courses have slightly different styles, including psychology, electrical engineering, and law. The next few slides give examples of referencing in the Harvard system, but there are lots of examples in other styles on our library web pages. Just find your subject guide and look at the referencing tab. Okay, now let's look at how we reference and therefore how we avoid plagiarism. If you remember one thing from this session, it should be this. Correct referencing has two components, an in-text citation or an in-text marker, and the full bibliographic reference, which typically appears at the end of the essay or might be included as a footnote at the bottom of the page in some referencing styles. The in-text citation or marker is embedded into the essay itself. It lets the reader know that you have just quoted from, paraphrased, or summarized words or ideas put forward by another researcher in another information source. To avoid disrupting the flow of your essay too much, you don't need to include much information here. In Harvard referencing, you provide the author or authors' surnames, the year the source was published, and a page number if relevant. We'll see an example of this on the next slide. The bibliographic reference is the counterpart to the in-text citation. It is longer because it needs to include more information points that allow the reader to find the specific source you have used for themselves. For this reason, bibliographic references are usually included at the end of an essay in a list. In this list, you provide references for all of the sources you have used throughout your assignment. Whereas you need to include an in-text citation every time you mention a source in your essay, even if you have cited it previously, you only need to include the bibliographic reference once in the end at the reference list. Here's an example of what an in-text citation and bibliographic reference looks like in Harvard referencing. As you can see, the in-text citation is put in round brackets immediately following the quote, paraphrase, or summary taken from the information source. We've got the author's surnames, McCormack and McCants, the year it was published, 2017, and the page number that this quote is taken from, page 133. Underneath, we have the bibliographic reference for the same information source, and it contains more information. This time, we have the author's initials in there too, the year of publication is in round brackets, and we also have the title of the resource. This is quite important if you want to be able to look it up afterwards. Now, the information you need for bibliographic references does differ slightly between source types. For instance, this example is for a printed book, so we need to provide the place of publication and also the publisher. However, a reference for a journal article or a website would look slightly different. We would want to provide the details of the journal, title the article was published in, or the URL of the website, for example. This is not something you need to worry too much about now, as we have an incredibly comprehensive web page that you can use when you need to start referencing different sources, and we will also be teaching you how to do this in more detail ahead of any assignments you need to submit. Before we finish, here's one last slide on how you can find the information you need to compile a reference for an information source. This image is a screenshot from the library catalogue, and you can see that all the components you need to create a reference are right in front of you. The author, year, title, place of publication, and publisher are all there. You can nearly always find a ready-made reference for a journal article on the journal website or the database it comes from too. That's the end of this session. We hope you found it a useful introduction. There is lots more help and resources available on our web pages, and we also offer support in the form of teaching within your program timetable, bookable skills workshops that run throughout the year, and one-to-one appointments with a librarian. Find all the details on the new student induction guide. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.